and welcome to another episode of Tell It Like It Is. I'm your host, Morris, man, and my co-host is.
Joseph Spencer.
And today we thought that we would do a part two of a video we did a week ago. It was called Aging. And there were some more things that we wanted to discuss that we just couldn't cram into that short time period. So we're going to do that. Because I honestly believe that as we get older, it's a responsibility that we have as older, mature people to kind of help the younger folks. Kind of, put them on the right path, so to speak, or just kind of give them advice. Because when I was a younger person, I respected the older people in my neighborhood because they had a lot to say and things that would help shape me as an individual. So I appreciate those people in my family because I've been fortunate. I've had a family system that have nurtured me when I was a younger man and told me things to avoid as a younger man. And as a result of that, I'm not caught up into a lot of nonsense because, I got caught up into some nonsense because I didn't know better and I kind of walked into or stepped into a minefield. So today we're going to touch on some of these topics because somebody asked me as an older person, what one piece of advice would you give a younger person? Because before I answer that, we're in the process of trying to put together a class called Life Class. And what that class is composed of is to help young folks, as far as things they're going to experience in their life that no one tells them about. Because it's nice to have knowledge as far as history. George Washington was the first president, but realistically, is that going to help us as, growing, developing individuals unless you plan on being a history teacher? So the life class would basically going to be consistent of things that we can teach young folks that they can apply and things that they need to avoid. Because again, the question that someone asked me was if there's just one bit of advice that you can give to young folks, what would it be? And I believe it would be this, because a lot of us don't think about this and how deep this goes. Again, when I was younger, I was taught things to avoid. And here's just one of them. Here is, the number one. Don't start having children with people that you're not going to be with or marry, because children are a lifetime commitment. And once you start making that mistake of having all these children, whether you're a young man or a young woman, with people that are not going to be in your life that long, and now you're stuck with taking care of children with half the power or the ammunition, because regardless of what some people think, it takes two to raise a child: a husband and a wife, a man and a woman, not grandmama and the daughter, or not daddy and his girlfriend, but mom and daddy. And we take that, or should I say, the young folks these days take that for granted because there's just a whole lot of casual sex going on. And I'm not trying to stop nobody from, being intimate because we are physical creatures, or sexual creatures. All I'm saying is be mindful and use your common sense to not make mistakes that's going to cost you a lifetime of problems. And I'm going to go into this a little more detail, but I'm going to turn it over to Joe and get some of his thoughts on, what do he think about our responsibility as older men.
You just hit a chord on the children thing. When I was young, it was the people who was raising me, my parents. You being mannish, that's none of your business. You're talking, that's sinful. And I'm thinking, well, I'm here, my brothers and sisters here, so how can this be sinful? My first child, when the young lady I got pregnant told me she was pregnant, I asked her where babies came from. How did you get pregnant? I was having sex, but I didn't correlate sex
With children.
Yeah. Because I wasn't, indoctrinated. I was 16 years old. I still thinking babies came from the stalk. With the information these kids have now, I can't understand why in the world you 14, 15, we didn't have sexual education, maybe some of the upper middle class school did back in the 50s and the 60s, but we didn't. And I don't understand how these kids today, with the protection they have, at 14, 15, 16 years old, go out and have multiple children, I don't understand, myself personally, I wasn't brought up on pornography.
Yeah.
But I begin to notice that a lot of young men are, young, not 19, not 20, not 23, about 12, 13 years old. They're watching hardcore pornography. And they see pornography as sex, making love, but it's so far away from it, it's ridiculous. Sex is an emotional, spiritual thing, number one. That's why you get that feeling, that whole body, that whole universe feeling. And once you have sex with a woman that you care for you, you can feel the difference.
Yeah.
Kids look going, it's not just made for thrill, you know. It took me a while to begin to understand that. I was about 25 when it light went up on my head. Say, this is some serious stuff. Mm-hmm. Even if you're not producing babies, this is some serious stuff. The swapping of body fluids, the swapping of emotions, you know, to get a young woman dependent on you, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. That's a great big old responsibility. Sex is not a game. But the movies and the books and music display it as being a game for profit.
Well, the answer your question, as far as I think you just mentioned briefly, that why our younger folks these days are very casual, and I guess the answer to that question is it's been accepted.
It's been accepted.
You know, because 40 years ago this was not acceptable to do this. And I want to make this point before we sign off. I was in a cab back in the 80s, and this guy was maybe 7 years older than me, and he was complaining, being taken to child support court, they taking all my money. And he was trying to blame this situation on the woman. I'm like, it takes two to tango. And if you don't walk away with anything else today on this show, understand this. Because again, I've been fortunate enough to dodge the minefields and not get caught up in the BS. When you start having these children outside of your marriage, to women that you're no longer involved or vice versa, child support are coming after you, and you can't avoid or dodge child support. If it's two things you can't dodge, it's your loan, college loans, and child support.
And taxes.
And you're talking about, well, yeah, that's 10. And you're talking about taking care of a child for 18 years, and if you're not consistent with it, and say for instance you have gaps in your employment, that money compounds. You know, so if you don't do anything else, don't put yourself in that situation, because it takes years, and some people never get out of that situation. Never. You know, and it's so easy to avoid it by just making sure that you're not going to be bearing children with someone that you don't love, but you're just having sex with. And nobody's trying to judge you when it comes to having sex. What we're saying is, don't make the mistake of getting caught up into that, having these children that you don't take care of, you're not attached to. They grow up and have this animosity towards you and hatred because you're not there. And, you know, you look up and your pay period coming, your check, and you got 30% of it missing, and it's going to be missing for the next 17, 18, 19 years. It's easy to avoid that, you know.
And you have 4 or 5 of those.
Yeah, it's easy to avoid it if you're just mindful of that. Because again, I stress, no one's trying to shut you down from the sex thing. We're just saying don't have children as a result of the sex thing. Because trust me, that's going to haunt you and keep you derailed for the rest of your life if you're not prepared for that, and financially you're just not ready to be taking care of children. You know, because we're very careless with that these days. And that is something, again, and I stress heavy, that you don't want to get caught up in that, you know, because trust me, you don't, you know, and it's easy to avoid. You
know? The few young men I get a chance to talk to, I'll be out, you know, sitting and having a cup of coffee and a cigarette. I'm trying to tell them that when you run into a young lady and she really cares for you, I mean, she's attracted to you, you know, she got that feeling for you, it's your responsibility to take care of her, because women are designed and taught that romantic thing. If she feels romantically inclined and physically inclined to respond to you, it's your responsibility to make sure that both of you are safe, because it seems like to me, I've been having sex for a long time, when a young woman wants you, everything just go out of the window, you know. People say, I've been hearing that men are dogs, you know, men are dogs and blah, blah, blah. No. Women respond to physical contact differently than men do. They give their whole existence, you know. And you have control over this. When you look at a young woman and you know she's not taking birth control, you don't have any Trojans, it's your responsibility to say, wait a minute, baby, stop.
Absolutely. Because not only We talked about the sad aspect of children bearing.
Yeah.
We ain't even touched on the aspect of transmitted diseases.
Transmitted
you know,
diseases.
HIV, AIDS, you know, herpes, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
you need to protect yourself and don't have that attitude and mentality that that's not going to happen to me. That's going to happen to the guy down the street.
Yeah.
But I'm going to wrap up my summary, and then I'm going to let Joe wrap up his, and we're going to call it a day. We might even do a third one because there's just so much that we need to we can discuss. And I'm going to try to give a really short, round off of, signing off, or should I say, summary. And here it is. And I think most of us don't know this until our families or members tell us. Because most of us don't know how really things work, especially when you're young. And it's just this simple. You be respectful, you be mindful, you go to work. The reason why you go to work, even though you don't want to go to work, is there's going to become a point in your time that you won't be able to go to work no more. You're either going to be too old or you just physically can't do it. So when you go to work, the government puts aside which is called Social Security money. So when you get older, you can live off that for the rest of your life because you can't no longer go to work and draw a paycheck. So that's why it's important to go to work. And a lot of companies have what's called a full K1 plan, meaning that if you put a little money to the okay, well, we're gonna wrap this segment up, and we most likely gonna do a part 3 because there's so much that we can still discuss on this issue. But in the meanwhile, I thank you for coming to our show. Tell it like it is. I'm your host, Morris Mann, and my co-host is
Joseph Spencer.
And until next time, take care and keep thinking.
Be blessed.